Welcome to the Journos on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. I'm Peter Martin, Hugh McDonald, Barry Anderson and Alison McConnell here with me on the show, and thank you to you for tuning in and downloading the podcast as well. If you would like to join the football family, you can hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel and you'll be able to access all our unique video content. And if you download the app, you'll get all the breaking news at your fingertips as well. So thank you to everyone for all the very positive comments about this programme, and so many people emailing us and saying we absolutely love the top 5 and the top 10. Don't let Alison get her way, and make sure it happens every week. So I'm just going to...
Have you got anybody saying what a top 5 of the top 5s?
Yes.
We should do that.
We'll do that at the end of the season, Hugh. But we try and offer an intellectual view on various subjects, domestically and slightly further afield. So we'll get your thoughts on that. Great to have Barry with us. Of course, we were looking at all the stories that have been coming up over the last few weeks, and Rangers are really at the forefront because of the takeover, which is moving ever closer. And, you know, there's many a Rangers fan of a certain generation thinks it's going to be an unbelievable change and a quick one. But if you listen to most, it could take a wee bit of time, not only to get over the line, but also for any kind of transition in their fortunes.
Yeah, I think I think basically though it's good news for Rangers fans. I don't expect talk of huge war chests or anything like that, at least initially. But I think what's going to happen here is, you know, for the first time in decades, they're going to have people at the top who are going to have a strategy, you know, a real strategy about how they're going to go about their business, how they're going to recruit, who they're going to employ, what their aims are. And I think in that sense, Rangers have been just churning up losses after loss, throwing money at it. The strategy has been more money. And these people are serious people who will have a strategy. So I think it's good news for Rangers fans.
Yeah, as it moves ever closer, Barry, you look and you say to yourself, well, what are the main hurdles that they will have to overcome before they start to think of a bright new future? And I was trying to list them all. Paying debtors is the key. Shareholders' price for whatever shareholders think their shares are worth. Stadium repairs, which I think is an absolute stonewall certainty. The clear out of underperforming staff is an absolute given, but it's costly. Recruitment of a new manager, recruitment of new players. Now, that's 6. If anybody wants to add to that list, by all means, tell me.
No, absolutely. It's a large entry, isn't it? And when you break it down like that, where do you start? You obviously have to prioritise getting a hold of the club, getting the shares. That's what they'll be looking to do and get that over the line. If they get that over the line, I think they'll have enough expertise in place to sort out the sports side of things, you know, the players and the coaches and managers and who's going to be in charge and all that. And then the stadium, you know, beyond that. But it's going to take a lot of money, and I think they have to come in it. It sounds like they will be coming in with serious money, but I think that's necessary because the gap between Rangers and Celtic has never been bigger, certainly in my lifetime. And the only way to close that is to get proper investment coming in, proper stability, and better players, let's be honest.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I think a lot of people are, you know, sometimes I think we're all guilty of going into a darkened room and throwing a dart at potentially who's going to become the manager, who's going to catch chance in hell of getting it. I mean, I know Barry worked for us. I have a lot of time for him. I really like him. I know he'd absolutely walk over broken glass to become the Rangers manager. But, you know, on an interim basis, he's just got to steady this ship to the end of the season and then hope.
Yeah, I think it was very much a short-term appointment. I think it was just... I think if they'd had their way as a club, I think they would have liked to have just continued with Philip Clement until the end of the season, and obviously their hand was forced in that respect. I think... I don't think that Barry Ferguson getting a job on a long-term basis is a viable option. I don't think he'll get it. I think it would have to be something utterly spectacular to put him in that conversation, and I just don't think he has the players capable of going and making that spectacular statement on his behalf. And I think you saw that at Ibrox on Saturday afternoon with the Motherwell result. I think he's now got a really challenging couple of weeks ahead of him. Obviously kicks off against Fenerbahce, first big test. Then he has to play them at Ibrox, and then a couple of days later go to Celtic Park against a Celtic team who have nothing riding on the outcome of this game. No pressure, know that they're on their way to delivering a league, so can go out and put on a performance, etc. So I don't think he will be part of the mix when it comes to discussions around who's in place next season. But I think first and foremost you probably need a sporting director. I think Patrick Stewart's made it clear the new structure will have a sporting director, and I think the sporting director will have a huge say in just who goes and takes the managerial job. What you might find for Barry is that there is some kind of role there, perhaps, depending on how this plays out now over the next couple of months.
Well, there are so many unknowns here on this one that I'd love to get your thoughts on it, guys, because quite simply, you don't know what the plan is for a board who comes in and they've got a clear strategy and who they want to lead them as far as being the manager who puts a team together and a winning team in their mind. There's no logic in football, and if anything I've learned over a long period of time in journalism is the fact that as you get older, and especially in this generation, there seems to be a really quick knee-jerk attitude to writing people off, to dismissing them. I look and some people said, well, Frank Lampard can't coach anybody. He's hopeless, so he can go. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gets 2 or 3 jobs, and then people, well, he's made the back end of it. Wayne Rooney, another classic example. Barry Ferguson, people have dismantled him for his record in the 3 previous clubs, and now he's at Rangers, and he's had one battling performance against Kelly, and one where we all saw the Rangers that we've been watching all season.
Yeah, and there's a limit to what a coach can do. I think the coach has got to get the best out of the players, etc., etc. But it's easier said than done, particularly when a manager talks about nervousness. You're saying to yourself, well, if you're prone to nervousness, you shouldn't be playing Rangers,
It's a classic Jock Wallace line, isn't it? Who needs motivated? Me. Well, you shouldn't be playing for Rangers in the first place.
Well, it's as simple. There's a different expectation there. I think with this, what you got to remember with this group that's coming in is, the old great American saying, this isn't their first rodeo. And with all due respect, they've been dealing with bigger sums, bigger franchises, bigger budgets than Rangers.
Yeah.
You only have to look at Leeds down the road and the budgets there. So what you've got to do is, if you're making any prediction of what they'll do in the future, look at what they've done in the past. And I've made a few phone calls to people in San Francisco when this story came up in newspaper, people that I know had worked in American sport. And these guys are very methodical. They'll deal a lot with the modern thing. Everything is analytics. Everything is stats. The head coach is not the prime moving force in an organisation. It's what the Americans call the front office decides everything. By that they mean the business. Fenway's a bit like that with Liverpool.
Yeah.
They run it, and they put people in different levels. And if the head coach doesn't work, nothing collapses. The head coach comes out and they put another head coach in. They have a strategy of who they want to recruit, who they want to play, where they want to be, how they're going to get there. So it'll be much more methodical than just say, we'll buy, Ramsey in the transfer window, or we'll buy 6 players. Everything will be much more methodical.
And that brings me to the next part of this, which is where it does become the great unknown, because if this group comes in, this strategy, this plan, this structure that takes place at Barry, then you get a situation where the old guard and the old way that Rangers used to succumb to the groundswell of opinion no longer matters. I mean, I look and I'm gobsmacked at the fixation with Steven Gerrard. I just don't get it, that he could potentially be somebody that... But everybody that's names put forward, I'm absolutely disregarding anything, whether it's in a broadcast, a written sense, or a radio, whatever. I don't listen to it because just on the back of what Hugh's saying there, this group will come in, change their entire structure, and then look completely. And I wonder if they'll change the culture of Rangers, because before it's all been Rangers men who've been on that board.
Yeah, they'll certainly look at it very objectively. Being America-based, they'll be very detached from what goes on over here. And the point that Alison makes is bang on. They need a good sporting director who is plugged into what happens in Scotland and British football and European football. So that's going to be a key appointment for them. Ultimately, they need to bring in, and they'll take recommendations on this from different people at different levels, but they need to bring in people who can handle the pressure, handle the demands. For a head coach, you would want somebody who's got a relative amount of experience. And I understand what you're saying there about Steven Gerrard, who did win the league for Rangers, but is he going to be the guy that they'll look to? I have my doubts, like you. And then players beyond that, you need people who are of a better quality than they have at the moment, and also who can handle the pressure and handle the demands of Rangers, and that's not easy. You've seen people come in the past. One that sticks in my mind was Jonas Tern, who came to Rangers, a number of years ago now, but great player, top European player, just couldn't adapt to Scottish football, couldn't fit in with Scottish football, couldn't handle the situation at Rangers at the time. So that's a lesson that you have to learn. You have to bring in the people who can handle it.
Yeah.
I think what you're bringing in, what you're introducing to the club are businessmen. Businessmen that don't have any kind of emotional attachment at all to a club. And that is a modern day entity.
Yeah,
that is
exactly. I
football.
understand where you're coming from, but will that be met with a little bit of friction because of the history? When you go back and you look at the
if
board,
Rangers win the league, nobody will give a damn who's
No,
running the club. That's all. All that matters is if you can present a winning team on the park, then that's all. That's your be all and end all. If you can win games, win titles, get to the Champions League, take Rangers to a place where they believe they should be at, where the supporters believe they should be at every season. If you can deliver that, nothing else matters.
And with that in mind, Hugh, of course, the ultimate thing is, as we talk about this transition, we talk about getting it over the line. Getting it over the line is still to be delivered, because what we don't know is we don't know anything that might actually stick in the business. I mean, there've been business people before that have come to Rangers to contemplate buying it, and it's fallen foul of last minute hitches where they think, no, we're not going to touch it. So getting it over the line is one thing, and of course the other aspect of this, the other obstacle in the forefront of this is Celtic, because this premise of Rangers go through a transition and Celtic stand still while Rangers run past them is not going to happen, because they've got a billionaire of their own who owns the club.
Yeah, he always. There's Dermot Desmond. There's things that he doesn't take a great interest in the club. Anytime the club's in crisis, he certainly moves pretty smartly. So yeah, I think they'll be proactive as well. I think you're right to say it's not over the line, but I was told with somebody very close to negotiations, that when you have a willing seller and a willing buyer, then it generally goes through. And apparently, the diligence, of course, will be be minute and it'll be forensic. But there is a feeling that the people from San Francisco, Marath and others are prepared to negotiate. Say they found something under the bonnet they didn't like, rather than it being a complete and utter barrier to think, it may become a negotiation thing.
Yeah.
And one thing you've got on the Rangers side, I think you've got a real willingness to sell. I think you've got people in there that just want out, and you've got people on the other side that just want in. So I would think it was pretty much set fair to going over. I think the major point is culture. What we'll have to maybe react to is old-fashioned things that we always thought, it's really important who manages Rangers, and of course it is, who's the head coach. But that'll not be the big decision for San Francisco. The big decision for the San Francisco investors is who they're going to have on the board, who they're going to have as their sporting director, because the role of head coach in many ways has become diminished over the years. And you can see that with the Fenway Group, the way they deal with their managers. I mean, in the old days, Bill Shankly, Johnstone
would have been the most important
Brian
guy
Clough.
at the club. Yeah.
If you'd have said to him, what about signing so-and-so, we're in, and I'm telling them this, Slot's completely detached from any negotiations over. I mean, he'll make his case. Yeah, I do want Salah and that, but he's they'll make the decision where Salah is. You can see as well, Klopp, for example, at Liverpool. And people don't pick up on this, but Klopp at Liverpool didn't have the veto on players. The recruitment board would say to him, "You've got to vote, and you're outvoted. This is the player we're getting.
Yeah,
we're going to sign X. Oh, I wanted what? We're getting X." So that is the way that football culture is now moving.
And a lot of that Liverpool's done through analytics as well, Hugh, isn't it? In terms of bringing players in, but bringing coaches in, bringing sporting directors in.
I'll tell you what's amazing, Barry. Mark Burchill and Richard Hughes are at the heart of it for Liverpool.
Yeah, they're heavily involved, aren't they? Good on them. A lot of experience in the game, great jobs to get, and they'll be riding the crest of the wave really at the moment, won't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like one of those jobs with you. The only two jobs that I think, when you get a job like that where you've got a chance to go out and recruit players, and obviously these guys have got great qualities, but the other job I'd really like, Alison, is just a job at UEFA where you hold a clipboard and you just walk round corridors and you're not saying anything that could get you into trouble. You just walk round for the rest of your life. That's a great job that I'd really
I
like.
think you'd be tailor-made for some kind of diplomacy job.
You see that?
Thank you.
One thing to say about Peter, it never falls out with anybody.
Yeah, exactly. This is the key to. I'm just trying to think of a job where I couldn't fall out with anybody, and UEFA appeals to me.
Fall out with your clipboard.
Anyway, and I'm about to fall out with Barry now because we had a wee chat about it beforehand, but I thoroughly enjoyed the Edinburgh Derby, and the reason why I enjoyed it so much is because levels. If you go to a game and you understand the level of the player you're watching, the level of the team, you can then detach yourself from, like people say, the Old Firm game is the best, one of the best derbies in the world. And I looked for 20 years and I thought, I haven't seen it for technical ability. It's one of the best derbies in the world because there's a 400-year war of poison that they throw into the mix. But I go to the Edinburgh Derby and I think to myself, yeah, I lived in this city, I love it. I know the players are not technically the best, but you can get a wee bit of excitement. I thought that's what I thoroughly enjoyed about it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that as an occasion. Edinburgh derbies are always good, whether it's Easter Road or Tynecastle. And Sunday was no different. I just felt that the players on the park, not necessarily all of them, but a number of them were capable of producing a better quality game.
Yeah, let's get to Bashiri then. He reminds me of a player. There's always a player in a game, Barry, where you look and you think, oh, don't give him the ball because it just puts the fear of God into everybody. And he had one of those stinkers.
Yeah, there was a few of those, and you saw that just the way the Hearts goal materialised. There were a few other instances the balls are coming in the box and he's not exactly covering himself in glory, but Hearts didn't capitalise on that. That was the thing for them. They knew that Hibs were vulnerable at the back and they didn't seize on it, other than the equaliser that they got from George Grant. They didn't take advantage. So, in that sense, Hibs scored 2 goals, Hearts scored 1. That's what matters. All this stuff that comes through about XG and possession stats and attempts on goal and all that, yeah, that's all important, but only up to one point. If you score 2 goals and your opponent score 1, you win the game. And credit to Hibs for that because they took their chances.
3 good goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I think everybody will look at the winner as being the one that stands out because it won the game. I thought Martin Boyle's goal, particularly from Martin Boyle, okay, it was a long ball, a straightforward textbook ball up the park. But the way Martin Boyle got onto it, the pace that he showed, I have to say Gerald Taylor should be alive quicker. But the strength to hold off Taylor and then
just open his body up.
Open the body up, the side foot. Finish beyond Craig Gordon. I thought it was a really well taken goal.
Yeah, and again, I often mention this. Sometimes when you look at levels, I mean, for example, if you sit down and you want to watch Champions League football, of all the games that were there, this week, and I'm looking at, and you pick them out for your Tuesday or your Wednesday if you want to pick a game, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to watch Arsenal. I'm going to watch Real Madrid against Atletico Madrid because Simeone for me is a coach that deserves tremendous credit, but the ultimate for me, the best of them all, is Ancelotti. And and Atletico Madrid score a goal, and Ancelotti, I'm waiting, I'm getting the cigar out and thinking, well, I'm not bothered. There's another 87 minutes here before we batter them.
Yeah. Ancelotti's a remarkable guy. We've talked about it before. Probably the classiest guy I've met in football. There's a statement. Really good guy and very very philosophical where he is and that. No, very humble. And noticed there was a piece from the press conference last night where he said I don't really coach the players. I just try and get them into positions where they can do the best that they can do and hope they buy into it. And that's what you got to do at Real Madrid. Imagine in that dressing room, Real Madrid, you know, it's not a place where you come in and say, oh, you're no shuttling back, or you know, everyone's got an ego bigger than the next one.
I think Ancelotti adopts the same attitude as Ruffy when he was manager of Glen Afton. Let's go out there and enjoy ourselves. Let's have a right good time.
And Ruffy, of course, Ruffy achieved more than Ancelotti because Ancelotti's never won a Scottish Junior Cup.
Yes.
Has Ruffy got relatives in Pennycook? Because Ancelotti does.
Is there? Oh, there you go.
His relatives on his wife's side from Pennycook.
That's why he's been at the evening news. That kind of forensic journalism that we're looking for.
I love that all these little Scottish facts about great players or great statesmen over the years. You know,
Fair, that's why he's a good manager because he's managed to track that tree on.
I've been watching Pennycook Juniors.
Yes, and I've got to ask you, I mean, the power balance. I mean, I love the noise ups. You know, when Craig Levein was manager of Hearts, you know, the natural order banner. Yeah. There were some great bits of banter. I have to say the two managers at the moment are pretty dull. You know, you're struggling to entice a line out of them, likeable as they are. But the order at the moment seems to be swaying towards Hibs.
Yeah, you just have to look at the last few derbies. I think Arsenal got 1 win in the last 8 Edinburgh Derbies, which is pretty much unheard of. You know, the previous kind of 20 years, if you like. So they've got a bit of work to do to try and address that. Hibs, I think a lot of the change in mentality at Hibs, certainly this season, is down to David Gray and just the kind of values that he's instilled. I think he's a very good coach. We all knew he was a very good coach. But being a very good manager is obviously something else on top of that, being able to manage people, motivate them, and he's clearly able to do that. As you can see, the run that Hibs are on, sitting third place at the moment. And
do you fancy them for third?
At the moment, with the momentum they've got, I would fancy them ahead of Aberdeen and Dundee United. If Hearts can keep going on the run that they've had since Christmas, with the exception of obviously losing to Rangers and losing to Hibs, if they can get back on the winning run there, then I think they could be up there. But you know, it's going to be tough to try and catch Hibs.
Yeah, I've looked at the games before the split, because then all of a sudden, Ali, you're into that top half. You know exactly you're going to be playing the other 5 teams, you know, in the remaining games. I've written off Hearts for third. That's the first thing. And Aberdeen have got St Johnstone, Motherwell, Ross County, and Rangers. Now, under normal circumstances, you probably look at Aberdeen's run there and say, well, there's 3 games where they could think about 9 points.
I don't know that you could bank on Aberdeen to take 9 points and to take...
Not now, you couldn't.
Not just now, not just given the evidence of the last couple of months. I think Hibs have all the momentum. I think if my money would be on Hibs to get third, I would fancy them strongly to go and get third. I think they've got the wind at their backs, loads of confidence, big results, done really well against Celtic, against Hearts. And I just think what you've seen is a team revitalised across recent months. I think they look firmly on course for third.
Yeah, is that unbeaten in 15 now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible, Hugh. And they've got Kelly, St Johnstone, Rangers and Dundee in the 4 before they hit, you know, the split.
Kelly, St Johnstone, 3 teams fighting for their lives right now.
Yeah.
I just think I mean, it's the old cliche about Scottish football, but you now come into the business end of the season where everybody's got something to play for. You know, even before the split, you know, you're talking about Dundee. Dundee are perilously close to St Johnstone. People had written St Johnstone off weeks
10 points
ago.
at one point.
Weeks ago, and now Dundee are now in that struggle. So you're not going to the place where people are looking to get their factor 50 out for the summer, or checking up where they're going on holiday. Everybody's got something to play for.
Some of us need factor 50 in February.
That's right. I just think
People don't think about that, do they?
No, they don't.
No, honestly, when Neil Lennon sat in that very chair, he was the same.
To dim the lights.
What are you going to Cyprus for, you idiot? You'll get burnt to a cinder.
I just think that I think there's so much to play for in the run-in that, and I don't think there's that much between teams, and it's proved. Results prove that, and I think, you know, certain teams have got real pressing. I mean, if you look at Kilmarnock, for example, Kilmarnock at one point, I remember only weeks ago, you know, I was listening to the radio and Derek McInnes was saying we're 2 points off the top six, and that's where we're looking. We're looking for Europe. Now they must be looking behind him and saying we could
easily get dragged into
the
this.
playoff.
Well,
places.
Ross County and St Johnstone are killing them.
Aye. Yep, and Ross County have moved into an area where you go, my goodness, they're almost out of it, full stop. So I think the only thing Dundee, unlike Dundee United this season, for one reason, is that they seem to have a bit of resilience about them.
Yeah,
I know they had a bad
here's their
result.
games, Hugh, and this is why I think you might write them off on the last 4 games before they get to the split. Of the last 4 games, Dundee, Ross County, Hearts and St Johnstone, but Ross County and Hearts is away, and County have just flummoxed people with their performances. Their performances at home as well, and Hearts at Tynecastle is not going to be easy. I'm looking at them and thinking Hibs are probably in the box seat.
Yeah, Hibs definitely in the box seat. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fancy Aberdeen because I think Aberdeen even improved results. If you've watched them in the improved results, their performances haven't got significantly better.
Yeah.
They've got things have fallen for them, like 2-0 down and getting back to 2. That's fair enough. That's football, but I don't think there's enough to substantiate an Aberdeen renaissance. So I wouldn't say they are.
I also think the psychology of knowing they had third place showing up at one point and then you're being caught back. I think that plays with you a wee bit. I think it plays mind games with you a wee bit.
Do you know what's great for the league though, Barry, is you've got Hibs this even right now announcing they've only got 400 tickets left to sell of the 7,000 allocation for the Scottish Cup match against Celtic. That gives you an indication of what happens when you get a revitalised Hibs, a Hearts or an Aberdeen. The away support they engage.
Yeah, they absolutely do. I think in terms of league positions, I think it's good to see likes of Dundee United, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, Motherwell obviously in there as well. We can't forget them, the traditional bigger clubs that are pushing up towards the top 6, because quite often that you don't have that. There's often 1 or 2 that are down the bottom end of the table towards the bottom half. But you're right, I mean, these clubs have got big supports, and I think it'll generate a really good atmosphere at the weekend if Hibs actually manage to sell. Even if they don't sell the rest of those tickets, you've still got 6,500 tickets.
The other downside to it all, though, Barry, is if Hibs sell out 7,000, go to Celtic Park, win, then they just stand at the end of the game and play the whole Proclaimers album, because they're on a run that is unbelievable when they win games.
Just put on that musical.
Sunshine and Leith.
And maybe that's the 400 tickets I haven't sold, is for the cast of Sunshine and Leith to come on at the end of the game and do a rendition, London Olympic opening spell behind the away end goal.
Yeah.
That could be the one. Because I'm quite surprised actually. Aberdeen, isn't it great they've sold 6,600 tickets? I thought 7,000 tickets would be snapped. I mean, many season ticket holders have they got? 14,000, something like that, is as much as that.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as much as that, but I think Peter's right, momentum's everything, isn't it? If you've got momentum, then people that maybe ordinarily wouldn't go to an away game will come out and say, yeah, I think I'll go for that. Or even maybe people who are not season ticket holders, they'll try and gamble a ticket from somewhere.
It's a hugely intriguing game. I mean, you can look at it from both sides. You can make really strong cases for both sides. I mean, I thought the Martin Boyle goal, as stereotypical as it was for him, was really interesting, because that's where Celtic have been having problems playing a high line and people getting in behind it. St Mirren played it beautifully. I mean, Robinson's a really good coach. I mean, for coaching his players to give them the best chance to win the game. And that kind of third man run where they're playing it up to a man in front and then knocking it over the Celtic back four for a third guy racing through. What an absolute treat of the weekend. I thought that was a really tough. I mean, 5-2 for that game.
It was never a 5-2 game.
No, well, the funny thing is, Barry, I was speaking to a number of Hearts fans. My God, they were moaning about St Mirren as if there was some kind of physical battering ram, But I think St Mirren play good football. You need to come up with something that is plan B and plan C on how you go and play teams.
Yeah, I think they play to their strengths. Stephen Robinson's St Mirren team reminds me very much of Stephen Robinson's Motherwell team. Set up the same way, the same system pretty much, similar profile players in those positions. and it works for them.
Yeah.
And they put a lot of balls in that Scottish Cup match that Hearts played at Paisley that I covered. So there's so many balls on top of the Hearts defence, and they weren't coping particularly well with it. And I think that's obviously one of their strengths. That's just the way they like to do things. But that's one of Robinson's strengths, is he can identify players that fit into a system, and he realises the kind of game plan that he needs to build around that.
And talking about that game plan, we go back to Rocky Bashiri. If I was the Hibs boss and you have to come up with a plan. For me, the plan is, under no circumstances do you even contemplate playing out from the back against Celtic. If it was me, and I looked at the squad that Hibs have, I would be saying, let's go long, let's go in the channels, let's try and get in behind Celtic's high line. Don't start playing it out from the back, because the minute you do that with Bashiri on the ball, Dies and Maeda will be all over him like a rash.
Yeah, definitely. And I would probably, from the other side of the fence, if you're the opposition manager and you're coming up against Hibs, you stick a striker, a kind of bustling type striker, if you have one, you stick him on Bashiri. And if you're playing, if it's a three-man forward line, stick your other guys wide and behind the wing-backs and force them to come back and pick people up. Because Bashiri under pressure won't cope, you're right. That's something that I'm surprised more people haven't done against Hibs. Yeah,
do you fancy them?
No, I think Celtic Park's tough for anybody, even on this kind of run.
I don't know about you guys, but Ali, this is the toughest season ever for me to try and call who's going down. I've looked at the campaign. I've tried to give you guys as much information as I possibly can on relegation. Last season, you're relegated, usually you've got a team that's averaging 25 points, gone. But it's the playoff position that I think is the most difficult on this. St Johnstone haven't read the script, so they're really the spanner in the works, because they're starting to motor, and hopefully they can, from their point of view, they're thinking, can we get to a playoff place? 35 points is the point where you're in a playoff. So last season it was 35, the season before it's 34, season 21-22 it's 35, season 20-21 is 36, season 19-20 is just a complete anomaly. I think it was 27 points, and Kilmarnock ended up getting relegated from the playoff place. So that's your bog standard starting position for relegation. I can't call it, because I've got St Johnstone, Dundee and Kilmarnock as the three that I think are going to be battling. You might say to me, well, wait a minute, you can't write off St Mirren, Ross County and Hearts. I don't know. Give me your thoughts.
Who were your three? Sorry.
Well, I think the three teams that are going to be caught up in it and going to be battling to avoid either relegation or the playoff are St Johnstone, Dundee and Kilmarnock. I think St Mirren, Ross County and Hearts are not going to be involved unless you're going to tell me differently.
I don't know if Ross County are quite out of the woods just yet, but yeah, I would say definitely St Johnstone, definitely Dundee, and I think Kilmarnock might be dragged into it too.
Yeah, look at that table, and on that table alone, you find Ross County with 35 points already. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? That's why I'm writing them out of it.
I think I've not got my specs on, but I think at least 7 ahead of Dundee.
Yeah. And Dundee, I spoke to a couple of people from Dundee, including their assistant, Stuart Taylor, and he said, we've got Joe Shaughnessy back. It's a big return for us, and he thinks they're going to have enough. He thinks they've got a goal scorer on Murray. He thinks they've got enough to get out of it. I'm not so sure.
Yeah, on form, I actually think Kilmarnock will probably be okay. Probably put my neck on the line a little bit there, but I do think they've got more than Dundee and St Johnstone. I think Dundee and St Johnstone for me would be the bottom two. I'm just not sure which way around it will be. I would tend to say that Dundee would probably be more likely to finish 11th purely because they've got Simon Murray. I think 17 goals is it for him this season. So, and that's a strength that St Johnstone don't have as a forward with those kind of numbers. So probably those two. But I do fear for Dundee. I do think they're better than the league position suggests. But if you're down there and you're in this kind of run where they just can't seem to get themselves going, then you know how it ends.
I think that's been Kilmarnock's problem, like missing Vassell for so long.
Yeah. Well, there's Kilmarnock, Hibs, St Mirren, Motherwell and Celtic. is their next 4 games before
Yeah.
the split. Dundee's is a game against United, Rangers, St Mirren and Hibs. I wouldn't take that.
That
And
Kilmarnock St Mirren game will be huge.
yeah, and St Johnstone's final 4 games before the split is Aberdeen, Hibs, Celtic and Dundee United. So that maybe backs up what you were saying, Barry.
Yeah, it's tough. I think Dundee and St Johnstone for me. I'm not sure who your third one in the mix is just yet.
Yeah, the only thing that's saving grace, and this is going to be interesting to see what you have to say on this, Hugh. Valakari has got them playing some really good football. The young boy Mackenzie Kirk is, you know,
The boy in midfield's a player, by the way, Svedberg.
Yeah.
He's a good player. He's 26 and he's played 10 years in the top division in Sweden. And the first time I saw him, you know, he's one of the players, I'm not going to, you know, overpraise him, but the first time you saw him in a big pitch, Scottish Cup game against Hamilton, a pitch that's cutting up, you can just tell with the movement, the way he was comfortable on the ball. And he brings a calmness there. I don't think their problem is playing football. I think their problem is where they play football.
Yeah.
And it's going back to that thing about Hibs and Bushiri playing out for the back. I know we're Philistines when we talk about this. I know that there'll be coaches, UEFA, pro-licensed coaches all over Europe, they're watching this screaming, oh, this old dinosaur. But I actually think, I love teams that can play for the back, right? And play for, but sometimes, I mean, I can't remember the game, but it was a couple of weeks ago, St Johnstone played, and they were out the game. They didn't give them a chance to get a point out of the game because they played out for the back early and they lost a couple of goals.
Yeah.
And you say to yourself, well, that's all right, your strategies to play football, and I know all that, you've got to be confident and you've got to take it forward. But you're fighting for your very lives here. You're fighting about going into a division which, for teams of St Johnstone's calibre, is hugely difficult to get out of.
but they've only 2 defeats in 8 games, Hugh.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I get it, but I mean, now you're in the situation where you must maximise your chances in every game, and I would say, as a Philistine, that I would be much more pragmatic at the back.
Yeah.
Try to get the ball forward to your midfield. They've got pace up front, by the way. There was the you know, you can talk about the forwards had this long drought of not scoring goals, but you know, they're quick, they're active. They've got a decent midfield. They've got real quality in positions. I mean, Dre Wright's a good player. Graham Carey's lost a bit of his legs. He's a good player,
I like Carey,
technically.
yeah. Lovely-
I mean,
lovely
so
left
they've
foot.
got a bit of technique. As I say, Svedberg, I was really impressed with. So try and get it to these guys to play football, not your 3 at the back.
Who's got
no-
I think St Johnstone and Dundee will fight it out. I've got this thing about, it's old-fashioned about Kilmarnock saying that Vassell's, loss of Vassell's been a huge blow to them, but I just think they've got enough quality in their possession, and I think McInnes has got enough nous about him to pick up points where he needs them.
Yeah, so you're going St Johnstone, Dundee.
St Johnstone, Dundee.
Yeah, but you can't work out the positions.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Manager of the Year is going to be coming up shortly. Player of the Year, Hugh. The nominations, the voting slips will be going out shortly. It's May 4th for the PFA Player of the Year. Is it all a shoe-in?
I think Dyson Maida's. I mean, at the beginning of the season, it's funny. At the beginning of the season, you were seeing Kuhn. He's pretty nailed on.
Yeah.
But I think Maida's nailed on now. I mean, I just can't see, even if he doesn't kick a ball for the rest of the season, what he's done, you know, particularly since Furuhashi left. And my manager of the year would be John McGlynn. I just think, I mean, it's all this thing. I mean, Brendan Rodgers could win a treble and not win manager of the year. But I always think the manager of the year, the way I vote for manager of the year is who's outperformed expectations, who's really managed what he's had.
You never cease to amaze me, Hugh. You really do. Because last season on this programme, I sat here and said John McGlynn should be manager of the year with the Invincibles, and you lot battered me from pillar to post on him.
I think though the Invincibles is one thing. Winning a lot of games, I think they should be. Falkirk should be. If you're talking about League One, Falkirk should be expected to be very, very competitive, even dominant in League One.
But they're the only side that actually, in the last 2 years, out with Champions League matches, they are the only side with a manager who said to his players, go out at Celtic Park and go and play them at football.
And play,
And they just ran out of steam at the end, but boy, they were a joy to watch, Barry.
They are a joy to watch under John. I have to say, the job he's done there has been incredible. Not just winning games, but winning games with style and a philosophy, and actually properly playing out for the back, and capable of doing it and being coached to do it. It really annoys me, these teams that you see that the guy will centre half will take a goal kick and he'll touch it inside to the 6 yards to the goalkeeper, and then the goalkeeper takes a touch and shells it. You think, what's the point? Just bang it up the park if that's your intention. But anyway, sorry, to get back to your point, if John McGlynn gets back-to-back promotions with Falkirk, then that is a manager of the year.
He's doing it with a budget. I mean, see League One, you could say, well, as expected, they should do well. And the budget they had in League One was more than competitive.
Yeah.
If you talk about the budgets in the Championship and the budgets of teams chasing them, and by the way, he didn't gear up in the summer. He didn't muscle up in the summer to say, right, we're going to. I mean, he basically re-signed his League One team.
Yeah, you're not giving it to Rodgers, no treble.
Universities.
On the basis of expectation, I'll give it to John McGlynn. I'll vote for John McGlynn. Yeah.
The one thing that I think makes Rodgers a shoe-in is regardless of the situation before, where he was absolutely dominant, and the manner of him coming back, the big conundrum, the big question was, okay, you brought him back, to enhance the team and to make them better, and to get playoffs into Europe, which he's managed to do, and they've put in some really sterling performances. Now, I know Manager of the Year is all about the league, so they've won it at a canter. They could have a treble by the end of the season. That's why I think he'll get it.
I think he'll get it as well. I think he'll be quite a clear winner. I take the point about John McGlynn, and I think it's laudable what he's achieved. But I think if you win a domestic treble, make inroads in the Champions League, I think it's probably impossible to overlook him.
Yeah, Player of the Year, Maeda.
Maeda for me, I think is
Young
definitely Young Player of the Year. I think is harder. I think Lennon Miller will definitely be part of the conversation. I missed chunks of the season again because of injury, but I think he's enhanced his reputation again from last term. He's captained the team, taking on responsibility. I think he's improved. I think probably Lennon Miller might be the obvious one.
Is there anybody else, Barry, that you can think of that's coming out of left field?
James Wilson's had a good season,
Wilson's had a really good season.
But maybe not quite to the level that, as you say, with Lennon Miller done in terms of being captain. Some people have mentioned him in a Scotland context. Should he be getting looked at for a place in the squad, given he's going to get there eventually? Why not just get him in early? So, yeah, I think Miller ahead of Wilson for me.
Miller, we're all tend not to be sceptical, but we all look at young players and say what a road they've got to do, because we've watched great talents that maybe just didn't make it. But I thought Miller's performance at Ibrox the weekend wasn't spectacular. It was just really solid and mature. It was just doing things the right way. The pass I know that was a coached move in transition, to win the ball on one side and to switch it very quickly to the other side. It was a coached move, but his pass there was so simple, but it was so precise, and it was just the right pass.
Yeah.
And at that level, that's what you've got to do. He just technically we just banged it right across, opened up Rangers, and I just thought all through the match he was really. I mean, he was just he looked like a guy that's been playing there regularly for years.
Yeah. Before the transfer window opened, I suggested he was the ideal fit that Rangers should be looking to recruit, because if you've not got a lot of money, and even in the transition period where this board will come in, they're not going to splash multi-millions on, they're not coming from the Serie A or Bundesliga to go and join Rangers for huge amounts of money. But if you're looking at a strategy of saying, right, okay, if this blueprint that we're putting together is similar to Celtic's, you've got to shore up players like Lennon Miller. And the more I read about it, the more I see it, the more I think he's going to end up at Celtic.
Yeah, I've heard similar, same as you, Peter, but I think that's something that Rangers did well, or have done well in the past, bringing in people like, at a younger age, when they're maybe not quite teenagers, but guys like Lee Wallace from Hearts, Kevin Thompson from Hibs, Scottish players who have had a bit of experience in the league, but still had a lot of development to do and could make the step up. So you're right, it would make sense for Rangers for a lot of those types of reasons, particularly, Lennon Miller, I would say, is going to be in the Scotland squad in the next 12 months. I can't see how that doesn't happen. So you've got a future internationalist on your hands if you go and make the move now, but it'll cost a lot of money.
And he's going to be in the Scotland squad in a place where the Scotland squad is in a situation in that department of midfield. The Scottish club has got European class players. They've got real quality there. They've got, they've got Gilmour and McTominay playing for Napoli. They've got Ferguson at Bologna. They've got McGregor. McGregor's packed it in. We've got McGinn at Aston Villa. So they've got good players, and he'll definitely get in. The interesting thing about Miller is that you hear now that there's murmurs from France, teams wanting him from France, and I don't know if it's newspaper talk or what that teams in France are willing to go to €8 million for him.
Yeah.
So that makes it a pretty spicy deal, because you're going to have to add €4 or €5 million on, maybe more for salary as well. So it starts getting to a deal where you're talking about 13, 14, 15 million euros. So
whatever the price he's got to have an assurance to his dad and to him, you're going to play.
Yeah, but I think the way at Celtic, that would be you would be going, particularly at Celtic, saying, right, we were going to play. But I think there's signs that there has to be a succession plan for Callum McGregor, and there maybe be a look at it. McGregor's far from done, and he's still a top class player, but he is coming towards the end. And he might not be able to. McGregor's workload over the years has absolutely been phenomenal. 60 games. So there may be maybe a movie Celtic say, like, come here, Callum's not going to play every game.
Yeah. A couple of things before we finish. I always like to get your thoughts on the domestic issues and other stories. People start to panic and wonder about a strategy. You mentioned the Fenway Group, and then you start to wonder about, do certain players get deals if they're touching, early 30s? Are they worthy of a deal? My God, Salah, I think, is well worthy of a deal. He's had about 5 seasons of hitting 30 goals for Liverpool, and he's been on absolute fire this season.
I think it makes sense. I think it absolutely makes sense. But I do think that when you're a business and you're looking at it and you think that you're not recouping any money here at all, I think it becomes short-term contracts. You're not going to get a big contract, and if he's looking for a longer-term contract and the assurance and stability of that, I'm not sure he's going to get it. But if you're asking me on a personal level, should he? I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, he's just absolutely sensational for me. I would give him the deal. I think there are certain players, we're quick to write off people when they get to the twilight of their career, but there are certain players that when they continue to deliver the stats, their fitness, their ability to score the goals, their ability to stop goals, he's one of them.
Yeah, I'd give him a new deal purely on the basis he's got his hair sorted out. His hair looks far better this season, much more aerodynamic. But no, you're right. The numbers that he's getting is phenomenal for it, and consistently, not just for one season or even 2, but as you say, 5, 6 years now. He's just been ripping that league apart. Nobody can live with him. Nobody can cope with him. So it's not just pace, it's skill, it's finishing, it's assist, decision making. He's got absolutely everything. Yeah,
he's got that left peg, and you just cannot work out what he's going to do.
He's a wonderful player. But I would have if I was sitting in Fenway and not sitting in the Anfield Road end, or not sitting in a television studio, but if my office was in Fenway, I'd have great reservations about giving him a deal.
Would you?
Huge reservations.
And they are?
They are. He's going to cost, he's probably looking for $500,000 a week, a Haaland deal. So that's 26 million a year over 4 years. So he's going to be 4 years. £100 million for a player that you won't get a sell on for. £100 million for a player that you won't get a sell. And then what you do as well, if you're a Fenway Group, you say, well, what will Van Dijk want? What will Trent Arnold want? What will Diaz want? What will... it just goes down the team. You just burst open the whole... Because Van Dijk will say, well...
I'm as important here as...
I was more important. I came here and won the league for you. I've been the greatest defender in the world, and you're giving him that, and you're giving me that. Yeah. Trent Arnold will say, I've got all my career in front of me. Real Madrid won it. So I think the Fenway guys will be sitting down. And the other thing, analytics show, and I was reading this the other day there, that it's really interesting that before a deal, players usually have their best season for obvious reasons, and after a deal they go downhill.
The funny thing is, Barry, I spotted Barry in the press room the other day, the Edinburgh Derby.
Talking of people going downhill.
Well, I'm not. No, I was just about to say, I got out of the car in the car park, and my great friend John Robertson was coming out of the car, and and he revelled in an Edinburgh Derby, right? But he always said something significant to me. He says, Peter, the best time to negotiate a new contract is when you're battering those. He says, I used to absolutely crank it up, and he scored. I mean, I'm looking here at Salah. In the 9 games, he scored 10 goals. In the last 9 games, he scored 10 goals.
It's crucial to everything that Liverpool do. Yeah. I'm just pointing out that, see, if you're a punter and it's not your money, it's great. And if you're a pundit and it's not your money, it's great. But see, if you're a guy that's sitting in the Fenway Group and going to explain to the guys in Boston who are running the show why you're paying £100 million for a 32-year or whatever he is player, it's more. It's a bigger decision.
Well,
I think it probably cost $100 million to replace him as well. And that's
there's
the
a
side
point.
of the argument.
That's the other point.
I don't.
Or does it though? Or is it, well, can you go and bring someone in at like maybe 21, 22, 23?
If you've
It's
got
just not
somebody
quite
identified,
you're just not quite at that.
Well, it's not.
That's a
What
conversation that takes place
that's
in every boardroom.
That's a conversation because it was a straight thing. It'd been signed.
Yeah, but it's not. But the other thing about it, Hugh, and this is the thing about where we are with Moneyball, with groups, business groups that come in now and they have a strategy. Sometimes there is the anomaly. There are situations where you look and you say, oh my God, Liverpool have got a Van Dijk, touching 32, 33. Oh my God, they've got Salah. And then all of a sudden everybody was talking about Trent Alexander-Arnold going to Real Madrid. Well, he's on the verge of a new deal. So suddenly that whole structure of this is how we do business is really challenged because the stats that these guys are putting up forces your hand.
That's why you need really good guys, strong guys at the top of your organisation.
Not to be swayed. You can't be influenced by it.
These are huge decisions. They're not. I mean, because as I go back to the point, if you walk down Anfield Road and you ask anybody, of course you've got to sign Salah. If we're watching them in Champions League and that, we're just like, you don't want rid of him.
Yeah.
But guys have got to make other decisions. Guys have got to say, this is our budget. And here's another thing: if we start giving him the money, does that change the whole?
I think that's a huge thing.
The whole complexion of how we play players at Anfield. We've watched the explosion of wages in the Premier League. Only a few years ago, you were talking about a Premier League player gets 50 grand. Now you're talking, well, the top Premier League players get over 100 grand.
Yeah.
Now you're talking about hundreds of thousands. I'm talking about a week.
Yeah.
You're talking about Haaland. Haaland's burst the ball with that.
An underperforming Marcus Rashford gets 350 grand a week.
Exactly. I mean, it's gone to a different level.
Yeah. On that basis, and I always like to, I change every now and then as the generations move on and think, who's forcing their way into my ultimate Liverpool 11? And it's hard sometimes because I'm not letting anybody in easily. Ali,
Salah gets in.
I'm not shifting it, and I have to put him in. I mean, I have to put him in, and I'm playing a 4-3-3 here.
So you played him up front with Rushy and Douglas?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got to play him.
Have you taken out from
Barnes
previously?
Well, I can't take Barnes out. Oh, Barnes is a genius.
So you're playing Barnes in midfield?
I'm playing Barnes, Souness and Gerrard in the middle of the park. And then that back four, I've tweaked and changed in the last 3 to 4 years on that back four. Clemens is in goal.
Right.
But I've got Neil, Van Dijk, Hansen, and I'm sticking Andy Robertson in. He's a Champions League winner. He's a different style of player from Alan Kennedy, who scored
in the Champions League final.
2 goals in the final. He's a different type of player. And as and you look and you say to yourself, I mean, Andy Robertson, I think he's offered them. I think he's a modern day, that attacking fullback.
I agree with you, and I think he's central to what Liverpool became under Klopp, energetic. And I always remember telling you, I went down to the West. It was a season ago, 2 seasons ago, and it was kind of just like a normal Liverpool v West Ham game. Liverpool were trying for the title, obviously, but and I got on these seats way up in that old and looked down. So I just decided to watch Robertson all game. I wouldn't watch the game. I just watched what Robertson was doing, and I was absolutely shattered just watching him. It's astonishing. Yeah. I mean, he could run 1,500 metres or 400 metres. Just Just that he was doing runs all the time.
Yeah.
No getting the ball.
I mean,
Never
there
see him on a television highlight.
There are
Always there.
there are cop-outs who might turn around and say, well, wait a minute, Stevie Nicol
Yeah.
is a left-back who's worth a shout. But, but Kennedy pushing because of the amount of European Cups he won, Phil Neal's
Absolutely.
right back as a shoe-in. And of the players of the generations, this generation of young people who are watching, Van Dijk and Salah are in there. Is anybody you got in your mind, Barry?
Not really. I mean, I'm looking at your front three, Dalglish, Ross Stalley, you can't really argue with that. The ones that jumped into my mind were Robbie Fowler, Luis Suarez, but if you're basing on European Cup wins, then you've got to go with those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was...
I would go back. I would say like the guys like, I mean, I wouldn't put them in, but going back to the heyday of Shankland, I think Callaghan as a winger would be
over 700 appearances for
that
them,
would
yeah.
be a contender. You go even further back. When people talk about the greatest Liverpool player ever, I never saw him. Obviously, Billy Liddell at left wing would be coming, but I think they would have to be really at the top of. Salah's just like one of these game changers, isn't he? He's just one of these guys that's changed everything. He changed everything in that club, and he came. I'm not saying he came from nowhere, but he came from a background where I don't think anybody was expecting. After what he'd done elsewhere, that
After
he
Chelsea, thought he was going to into oblivion, and then reinvented himself at Roma.
And it's just been
Brilliant.
sensational for the
Yeah.
team.
Just before we finish, and this obviously ticks your box shoes because we're in our 13th year at PLZ Soccer, and you've been a stalwart, and and despite the fact that
That's how you spell it.
well,
Stalwart.
despite the fact that some young bucks come in from the journalistic, they jumped over from the written game into our broadcasting. Contrary to her opinion, I've decided to stick with you because I watched Modric come on the park for Real Madrid at 39, and he played his classic outside of the right boot pass against Atletico in the Champions League, and I thought he's a joy. Which brings me nicely to my top 5 veterans who are still playing at the moment, right? So Modric at 39, Ronaldo at 40, Francesco Acerbi, who's at Inter, 37, Neuer's 38, and another one which I thought was a great one was Ashley Young is 39 years of age.
Nearly played against his son.
Of course, thought it was pretty...
I thought it was great.
I thought it was poor that he didn't put him on.
Oh, no, I thought,
not having it.
it's not a testimonial. He's not a competition when it was a cup tie.
Yeah.
What about Craig Gordon? He's
I was going to
74.
mention Gordon.
Yeah, Craig. I can't believe I've forgotten Craig Gordon.
It's absurd. 42.
41, 42.
Yeah, Craig Gordon's in there. I mean...
And the Gordon story is just incredible as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
absolutely.
more retirements than Frank Sinatra.
Do you want to tell someone he was a young kid breaking through at Hearts? I was a reporter. I was the sports editor at Radio 4, and I can remember he was, good pals. And what are you doing? No, I'm doing nothing. I said, would you want to come through to my sister's for dinner? And we went through to my sister's for dinner. He was only a kid, and now you think, bloody hell, 42 years of age. I've watched you grow right through, and he's still. I mean, some of the saves he's making are outrageous, aren't they?
It's going to be interesting to see who actually plays for Scotland later this month in this Greece tie, because we know Steve Clark's been a big fan. Angus Gunn made a real effort to try and get him in the squad, but Craig Gordon's performances in the games there at the end of the second half of last year when Gunn was injured. He's the man in possession, isn't he?
Yeah.
But the great thing about football, I saw him against Finland, for the farewell game, going to Europe, and he was rotten.
Yep.
He came on for a farewell appearance, and he basically threw 2 in the back of the net. And you go, he did. I mean, it was just, it was absurdly bad. You were watching that game, you go, my God, this is not the way you would want to go out, Craig. And then he comes back, and that is but I think that's the most important thing about him, because other people would be saying, "Oh, that's me done." I've had a really poor 15 minutes here, but he's had all that background of breaking legs and coming back, breaking arms and coming back. And that's what he's all about, is about resilience.
And it finishes the programme on the basis that there's no substitute for experienced veterans. They're worth their weight in gold. I'm worried because I've bummed them up that much that in the summer it could become a Mo Salah discussion with you to go into a 14th year.
Half a million a week.
I want whatever Hugh's on.
Yeah, exactly. She wants the Alan Shearer deal. Whatever he gets, I want £1 more.
I'll settle for half of them.
Yeah, exactly. Great to have Barry Anderson with us, and of course Alison McConnell and the veteran who's still strutting his stuff with the outside of the boot passes, Hugh McDonald. He'll be back with us in the Journos next week as well. Hopefully you enjoy it. Keep downloading on the podcast. Figures are magnificent on our YouTube for the Journos, and we're delighted with your support. So from all of us here, thank you for listening and watching.